What's up guys? In this video, we'll be building the front-end web application to send images to our VGG16 Keras model being hosted by Flask. So let's get to it. In the last video, we got our predict endpoint set up on the Flask side to receive images of cats and dogs, and then respond with predictions from our fine-tuned VGG16 model. In this video, we'll be developing the front end of our application that will allow users to browse to a web page, predict.html, select an image, and have the predictions for that image from VGG16 displayed to them. Within our Flask apps directory, remember the static directory is where we place our HTML files. So let's go inside there now. Within static, go ahead and create this predict.html file just as I have here. This is where we're going to place our JavaScript and HTML code for our web application. Alright, we've already gone through all the nitty-gritty details about HTML and JavaScript in our video where we built our first web application. So we'll only focus on what's new here. We can see that the basic structure of this page is pretty much the same as it was in that previous video, so let's jump in and see what's new. First, within the body, we have several elements on the page. We have an input element of type file, which is the file selector for which users can browse and select the image that they want to get a prediction for. We have a predict button for the user to click when they're ready to get their prediction. We have a paragraph with the word predictions, which is just the place on the page where the predictions will be displayed. And underneath that paragraph, we have two more paragraphs, one for dog and one for cat. And this is where the individual probability values for the dog and cat predictions will be displayed on the page. Lastly, we have this image tag for the image that's selected using the file selector that we created at the top of the page. This source attribute specifies the URL of the image. Initially, the source attribute is an empty string because no image is selected until the user browses to it from the file selector. So that's it for the elements on the page. Next, we import jQuery in this first script tag, and then we have all of our JavaScript embedded in this second script tag. Here, we first instantiate this base64 image variable. We then grab our image selector, which remember is the element that the user interacts with to browse to an image file, and we call the jQuery function change on it. So when a change event happens on this image selector, like when a user selects a new file, then we specify how to handle that change using this callback function. First, we initialize this reader object as an instance of the FileReader class. This object will allow our web application to read the contents of the file the user selects. We then set the onLoad handler for reader. OnLoad is a handler for the load event, which is triggered when the file reader successfully reads the contents of the file. So when our file reader object reads the contents of our image file, we first initialize this data URL variable to be equal to reader.result. Reader.result contains the image data as a URL that represents the file's data as a base64 encoded string. We then set the source attribute of the selected image equal to the value of data URL. This causes the image to be displayed on the page. Then we set base64 image to be equal to the value of data URL without this URL portion. The URL portion contains metadata about the image. When we strip this out, we're left just with the base64 encoded contents of the image file, and that's what we're assigning to the base64 image variable. Now, I'm working only with PNG images, so if you're working with other image file types, you'll need to keep that in mind so you can make the necessary adjustments to where I've specified PNG here. Lastly, we log the base64 image contents to the console. Alright, that's it for what happens after the file reader reads the contents of our selected image file. But we're still nested within our callback function for the change event that occurs once a user selects an image from the image selector. And within here, we have just a couple things left to do. First, we need to actually load the selected image, and we do that by calling readAsDataURL on reader, which reads the contents of the selected file. So when a change event happens on the image selector, so when a user selects a file for example, we read the image with this line. And when that happens, the load event occurs, which triggers the onLoad handler we just defined. Next, we need to get rid of any previous text that was being displayed for cat and dog predictions. So, for example, if we selected one image and got a prediction, and then we wanted to select another image, we want those previous predictions to be cleared from the page. Alright, so that's everything that happens once an image is selected. Next, we need to specify what happens once the predict button is clicked. When a click event occurs on the predict button, we first define this message variable to be equal to a JavaScript object with a key called image whose value is the base64 image. Next, we log this message to the console. Then we make a post request to our predict endpoint with the message converted to JSON, and we specify what to do with the endpoint's response within this callback function. So recall from when we built the predict endpoint that it responds with JSON that contains a prediction key. And the prediction key's value contains a dog prediction and a cat prediction. So once we get a response, we set the dog prediction text on our web page equal to the value of the dog prediction returned from the endpoint. And we do the same thing for cat. We also call this toFixed function, which just rounds off the predictions to 6 decimal places. And finally, we log this response to the JavaScript console in the browser. And that's it. Let's go ahead and start up our Flask app and test this out. Alright, our model is loaded and our app is up and running. Now let's go interact with our web page. We browse to the IP address of our Flask server, :5000/static/predict.html. Alright, now let's select an image of a dog. Click predict, and look, a nice prediction for this image. Let's now browse to another image, this time a cat. Click predict, and we get another very accurate prediction. Sweet, go ahead and try this out on your side, and also take a look at the JavaScript console in your browser as well to check out the data we're logging behind the scenes. If you've gotten this far, great job. You've now gained major flexibility in terms of working and interacting with your neural networks. Let me know where you stand in the comments. We'll be continuing to work with this application moving forward to make some enhancements and check out other functionality that we can gain by having our neural network hosted in a web service. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.